Are we ready to start? Hi. Aloha, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order right now. This is the Leeward Planning Commission. It's Thursday, March 16th, 2023, and the time is 9:32. And this meeting is live streaming on YouTube. So I want to introduce the commissioners here today. We have Vice Chair Saheva Knowles. Good morning. Good morning. We have Commissioner Mike De La Cruz,
Good morning.
Commissioner Mahina Pashandawat. Aloha Kahiaka. And Mike Patuzik. And I'm Barbara DeFranco. I'm your chair today. And we have a quorum to hold the meeting. So I want to also introduce everybody else that you see here. We have from the Office of Corporation Counsel, we have Deputy Corporation Councilor Sinclair Salas Ferguson.
Good morning.
We have Deputy Corporation Counsel Jean Campbell. We have representing the Planning Department. We have Planning Director Zendo Kern. Hi, Zendo. And we have Deputy Corporation Counsel Jean Campbell. And representing our Planning Department, we have, sorry, did I do that one? No. Jeff Darrow. Okay. Sorry, I almost forgot that one. So, and also on staff, which we couldn't do all of this without everybody. Planning Program Manager Maya Jackson. Planner Alex Roy. Planner Christian Kay.
Good morning.
Planner Jessica Andrews. Commissioner Secretary Narika Sawyer. And Janice Hata is our Zoom host today. She's in Hilo. Okay, so I'm just going to ask everybody, a little housekeeping is to turn all your cell phones, if everybody put them on silent for us. And if there's anybody here that wants to testify, you need to fill out this yellow card over there. It's at the staff table. And if you have any written testimony that you didn't send in to us, if you would submit it to the staff now so we can see it. To all of us that are here in person, there's a little button at the microphone when you come up to speak that you press, and make sure that you get the mic close to you as you're speaking so that we can hear you. All right, so we're going to approve the minutes, review and approval of the minutes of December 15th, 2022, and the minutes from January 19th, 2023. So are there any corrections?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No, so all approval, say aye.
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 Okay. So the member of the public is going to go first, and I really thank everybody who is here for coming forward. But I don't see any cards here, so we don't have anybody speaking from the public. We have one person on Zoom, and the way that it works here is that either you can testify now, the person that's on Zoom, or you can wait until your specific agenda item is called and speak right before your agenda item. So do we have, Janice, is there a preference of when your client is going to speak?
So we do have one person testify or registered to testify on Zoom, but he hasn't appeared in the waiting room yet.
Yeah.
So I can let you know when he does show up, but his name is Mark Castang. He's registered to testify, but hasn't appeared yet.
Okay, well, I think he was going to testify on what, on item 3 or
3 and 4.
right. So he has some time to do that.
Yes.
Okay. That's Tom. They're not going to hear his thing today, so someone probably should tell him. Okay. So there's no public testimony. Okay, so just to be clear with everybody here, when you are giving testimony, that it's limited to what is relevant to what your agenda item is. And that if it's abusive, disruptive, or unduly repetition, you'll be asked to limit your testimony. The person testifying shall direct the remarks to the chairperson, that's me, or to the vice chair if I've recused myself, and not to any individual, staff member, or person in the audience. All members of the public shall extend proper courtesy and respect to one another, commission members and staff. Good that we live aloha here. Any person who does not abide by these rules may be ruled out of order. And we will give you one verbal warning, then we will take a recess if it is completely out of order. And then again, if there's a third one, you'll be asked to leave the meeting. And I want to request that all the commissioners here that you feel supportive in assisting me to maintain order by calling point of order if there is anything that gets strange or abusive. All right, so we don't have any, still we don't have anybody signed up, is that right? Okay. So then we're going to move on to the new business. So we have agenda item 1. So we have an applicant, Frank Serlin, PL SMA 2022-000024. It's an application for a special management area SMA use permit to demolish an existing single-family dwelling and an accessory building and construct a 2-story, 3,023 square foot, 4-bedroom, 5.5 bath, single-family residence and related improvements, which includes two two-car garages, and an in-ground swimming pool, spa, and lanais on 0.38 acres of land situated within the SMA. The subject property is located at 69-1882 Poico Beach Drive on the Mackay side of the road, approximately 1.75 miles southwest along Poico Beach Drive, and from the Poico boat ramp, port of Poico Beach, lots Lalamilo, South Kohala District, Hawaii, TMK 36-9-006025. So we have our staff, Alex Roy, to do our PowerPoint presentation.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm trying to get this going here. We got 2 different battling mouses. So. Okay, good morning. I'm here to present the project for Frank Serlin. This is a special management area use permit, PL SMA 2224. The TMK there's listed 696. This is in Poico in the South Kohala District. Here's a location map. As most of you know, this Poico Beach Drive extends down, and they're about close to the end there, probably the last third. That red star marks the location of the project. The applicant is requesting to demolish the existing single-family residence that's located on the property. They're going to construct a 2-story single-family residence, garage, a covered lanai. They're also going to do an in-ground swimming pool, spa. The existing septic system will be closed and replaced with a DOH approved aerobic advanced wastewater system. The total development area is 4975 square feet, and the home will be connected to the existing utility lines like water and electric that already run through Poico Beach. Here's the county zoning. You can see that the subdivision itself is single-family residential 10,000 square feet. You have Malka of the subdivision zoning is agricultural 5-acre. And this remnant parcel, which there's not much left, is actually open zone. But as you'll see, there's very little land left. It's eroded away, thus making this a shoreline parcel, which is why we're here today. Here's the state land use, urban, of course, in the for the subdivision, and then conservation for those ag Malca lands. Lupeg has the subdivision as low density urban. And then you can see open for both this remnant and then those Malca conservation lands. Here's an aerial photograph of the subject parcel outlined in red. So take note of the other development throughout this area. You can see that there's large homes that are right up to the old 20-foot setback. So I just want you to recall that. So you can see, especially these three down here, they're built right up to that 20-foot setback, as is this property, the subject property. Here's a site plan of the existing development. I've marked out the 40-foot, so the current 40-foot shoreline setback. So we can see that a majority of this structure and a small portion of that structure extend into that setback area right now. So once the old structure is demolished, the applicant is going to be moving back outside of the 40-foot setback. So this represents a small scale managed retreat. What we'd like to see people doing as they move forward, trying to move themselves back from the shoreline. So this is a great project in that they're demolishing the house that's in the setback and then moving everything outside of the setback. And as you can see, they're going to fill up the property, but it's well designed with the garages and home here. So I just put this up as a reference from what's existing and then what's proposed. So you see there's a difference, you know, and I put the height difference. You got 22 feet. So we're adding a couple feet of height on that back building there, but for the most part, it's outlined. It's laid out similarly. Of course, it'll be a larger structure, but just to kind of give you a reference on the scale and the changes. I like to show the public access when we have SMA projects. So here we have 3 public access points right in this area, and 1 is directly adjacent to the subject parcel. And here I outlined it in this bottom photograph. You can see subject parcel outlined in blue, and then the red arrow indicates the shoreline access from Puaco Beach Drive. There is no parking. It's a pedestrian access. So no parking, only pedestrian access. Here I went and visited the site, did a site inspection, and here's walking down to the access, and then so here's the subject property, and then here's the subject property in both photographs on the left. So here you can see, as I was speaking before, that remnant parcel really no longer exists. And the shoreline essentially is right up to the Mackay face of the existing seawall. This access point was repaired with the county. There were some issues back in about 10 years ago. And so that wall was repaired and now is safe and secure, clear access for pedestrians, and then the protection for the residents. Here's a photograph. I kind of peeked up over the wall into the front, the Mackay side of the property. So all of this will be clear as the applicant moves out of the setback area. So we can see that this will kind of remain probably very similar to what we see now, which is just a grassy area. And then the pool will be right at the 40-foot setback area. And here you can see the wall, and then the neighboring property. There's a large wooden wall kind of bounds between the neighboring property and this one. And then there's a wall along the Mackay face, and then a wall along the access. And then the front of the property, let me show you that. Here's from the street looking towards the property. You can see that it's pretty open. So there's plenty of buildable area, no real grading or land, needs to be, because it's been well developed since the 1960s. Here's just a shot of the property entrance of the driveway to the subject property, looking along, so kind of northeast along Puaco Beach Drive. And then right adjacent to that would be the public access. So there's the driveway and then the public access is kind of right there. We spoke to this, myself and Tracy Camaro, the other SMA planner. We spoke to a gentleman who's lived on this property across the street. And we asked him about the access and if there's any issues. And he said, no, it's pretty well used and there's never been parking issues or anything like that. A lot of people, I think most of us know, walk up and down this road and utilize those access points. But we asked him if there's any kind of concerns that we should be aware of. And he'd been there for 20 something years. And he said, no, nothing that he could think of. So it's pretty readily used. It's wide open. It seems safe. And then it takes you right down to the water. So the deputy director's recommendation on this is approval with the stated conditions. Let me take questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Roy?
Sure.
Yes, Mike.
My main question was analysis of the scenic resources. It indicated in our packet that there wasn't a analysis because it wasn't viewed from a highway. Do we consider view from Puaco Beach Road?
By law, it is, view plane analysis really should be coming, it's from the highway.
Yeah.
But in this case, that's why I showed the height difference is only a change in 4 feet.
Yeah.
And then also along the access, there wouldn't be any view plane. And the fact that he's moving back as you walked down the access point, the view would actually be more open. So,
Right.
but no, the view plane analysis really wasn't done because it's, not from a main highway.
Gotcha. I mean, my perspective on, growing up there and seeing the changes in Puaco where you can drive down Puaco Beach Road and see the ocean.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the size of the houses coming in and the large stone walls that are being built.
Yeah.
You can't see the ocean anymore on Puaco Beach Road.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is a lot of large development that's going on down there. But there won't be a wall blocking, I think, on the Malca side.
What is the height of that wall? Do we know what the height of that wall is on the Malca side of the property?
Oh, on the beach, the seawall?
No, the Malca wall.
Oh, there is no wall along there's no wall along the roadside. The walls are along the access, seawall, and then there's a wooden wall between the neighbor and the property.
Yeah.
The drawings make it look like there's a wall.
No. Do you have
I did.
a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. The applicant is proposing to put in a stone wall. And he might be able to address the height of
Perfect. We
that,
can
a
ask
little
that.
more about that.
They're going to speak next.
I had a question about the second driveway. I only saw one driveway on the property currently. Were they intending to put that second one on the road front? Because it seems like it's two car garages.
Yeah, there'd be a second, if I could pull up
Yeah,
there'll
if
be
you
a
could show
second.
us the photo, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, we can bring up that PowerPoint again, just to show the plans. Yeah, so there'll be a second entrance entering that second garage adjacent to the neighbor on the side here. Let's pull up the photograph. Might be, yeah, so the second entrance would be here.
Is that standard? Does the county just put another apron there, or what happens with respect to the increasing an access point on the road?
I'm not sure about what requirements DPW might have regarding the additional entrance, and John might be able to speak to that. The applicant might be able to speak to that. The requirements for adding a second driveway. But I did notice there were a few residences down there that had multiple driveways, or in one instance, like almost the whole front was an entrance. But this is a pretty low use road. As you can see, the edges are, there's a lot of sand and stuff like that. But I assume that for line of sight, there may be some requirements to remove some of the vegetation. And then, of course, there probably is some standard separation between the neighboring access. But again, John might be able to speak to some of that.
Thank you.
Chair.
Commissioner, yeah. Sean Dwyer.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to confirm that this application is for, this applicant is expanding or putting forward the proposed use for residential purposes, correct? And that a short rental application is not attached to this proposal.
Not that I know. It appears to be a residence for Mr. Serling. Yes.
Are there any other comments? Oh, excuse me, Jeff Sorrell.
Thank you, Chair. The applicant's representative will be coming up shortly to speak about the application. It's my understanding that this residence has been used as a short-term vacation rental. It does have a current non-conforming use certificate. That was one of the concerns in doing this application, whether or not that particular permit would be null and void. The department did confirm that it would not be null and void moving forward. So just for your information.
If it helps, I'm here. It's Frank Serlin here. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, okay, you're going to be up next. And are there any other questions for Mr. Roy? Oh, you do, excuse me, Commissioner.
Just looking at the information that given to us, it looks like here that there was a improvement on I guess there's a rock wall along the property. That's back in 2012. Will they be reinforcing that with the additional swimming pool that's being built out there in a 20-foot setback? Will there be an additional reinforcement on those walls?
I'm not sure of the engineering, but the rock wall, the issue that you're speaking of was an issue between the applicant and the county to try to improve the access to maintain, because there was some damage to the wall. So John might be able to speak to the engineering aspect of it, but the whole reason for that rock wall repair was to ensure a nice kind of open and clear county access. Because there was some damage to the walls in the past. So the county and the landowner at the time worked together to come up and fix that wall. And that was the reason for the repairs and things like that. But as far as engineering, I'm not sure if the wall is going to need to be reinforced to support the additional weight of a pool.
Another question.
Yes.
When the construction begins, was there any feedback from the neighbors or the residents of Poco, knowing that that's the only one-way road, there's no other exit, just in case of emergency, traffic, as the other thing is one of my concern. If there's a lot of heavy machinery in the area, could cause some traffic when there's an evacuation route happen.
Well, the hope would be that they, store their vehicles and they're not parking on the road. But I totally get it because, when I went down there was construction and there was further up that road, and all the work trucks were parked right along that road. But we didn't receive any public comments, any comments from the neighbors. They were all notified in accordance with law, the 300 feet. And nobody contacted me, but I do understand. I've been down there many times, and I know that the work trucks can get in the way, and maybe John can speak to the best management practices that they'll employ to make sure that they're not blocking Poco Beach Drive. But it's a tight squeeze for sure.
It's a pretty narrow sidewalk there and road, so
Yeah, it's definitely a tight squeeze. And like I said, the day I went down, there was trucks that were kind of parked really, really close and you kind of had to go around them. But maybe the neighborhood understands there's limited space, but like I said, we didn't receive any public comments from neighbors.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I'll go
So,
last.
as part of the SMA use permit consideration, one of the things that we're required to look at, as I understand it, is the cumulative impact of development in the area. And I think it gets back to Commissioner Vatusik's question, which is really, growing up, Puaco used to look very different than Puaco looks now. So what does the planning department use as the basis for sort of impact of cumulative development? Because I think as we go to these like built to the edge of the lot, extremely large houses relative to the smaller houses that have been there traditionally and historically, it certainly does change the look and feel of the community. And I'd like to get your perspective on that as we consider the use permit. What is the tipping point for us to be considering cumulative impact of development when the development now looks like McMansions and it used to look like old Hawaiian fishing beach homes?
No,
I can
oh,
answer.
no. We have received guidance from the State Office of Planning on cumulative impacts. And that's something that Deputy Director Darrow, myself, and others have been really trying to figure out how to gauge those metrics. When you have a single family residential development, a lot of times the cumulative impact is not so much on the project itself, but like you said, on the overall community. And as these projects go in and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, that cumulative impact becomes kind of, like you said, kind of overwhelming the community. And then all of a sudden there's no access. I mean, we drive down a Lee Drive. I remember decades ago being able to drive down a Lee Drive, and now you can never see the water because of all the development that's gone in there. Puaco is no different. There is a lot that is definitely going down. A lot of large homes are going down. We can see 3 houses up, 3 houses down from the subject parcel. They're large development. But we are working to try to come up with, because it is something that we're supposed to be looking at, but how to determine cumulative impacts. We're still in the infancy of really trying to figure that out. But we are working with the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development to come up with kind of a process to determine that. And we would love any insight, on how that can be applied to specific projects when the cumulative impact is a more community level. But maybe Deputy Director Darrow can speak to that.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. When we look at overall development, it's normally at the time that development comes in for a permit. In this particular case, Puaco has been in place for decades. What's happened is the law has changed. Up to this point, each one of these dwellings would be exempt from review for SMA. They would be exempt. What happened in 2019 to 2020 is state law changed to say that if you're going to build a dwelling along the shoreline, you need to come in for an SMA permit. And the main reason for that was to address the impacts of the shoreline. Yeah, it wasn't so much to look at it. I mean, we do look at it accumulatively, but we're not going to place the impact of the entire project or entire Puaco on one person coming in because they are wanting to build their dwelling that was actually there since however long it's been there. What we are looking at now is to make sure they comply with the new rules and regulations of the shoreline area. This particular application is something that we would actually like to see happen more frequently, in the sense that they're demolishing the existing dwelling that's obviously too close to the ocean. and they're moving it back double of what it was previously. And so it's going to have less of an impact on the shoreline. That's how we're looking at this particular application. Up to this point, all of those dwellings that you're seeing in Puoco, my understanding, this is the first one coming before you for an SMA permit in this area. Up to this point, every dwelling has been exempt. And Puoco was developed prior to SMA rules and regulations. And so there was no review of a cumulative impact of the subdivision back when it was first constructed.
Yeah, all those large homes there never got an SMA because they were considered exempt.
So we don't, when we're looking at this, we don't consider at all that this house is basically 3 times larger than the current dwelling. It's not, it's more of this, the look and feel of Puoco overall that I continue to wonder about, and what our role is in managing that. So it's not just about the shoreline per se, but it's also about maintaining the character of these valuable communities. So the fact that someone lived there before, I absolutely understand that, but they lived on, 1,200 square feet of the lot, not 5,000 square feet of the lot.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to be clear too, that, so they're going to be removing all of the old building, and then they are required to do the SMA setback now at 40 feet. And you can clearly see all the other homes that are there are 20 feet probably, or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
And
Yeah,
then they're also putting in a current sewage system. Septic.
and John can speak to a little more, but
And you're gonna speak about
it's a
that.
high tech,
Right, a very high. tech,
aerobic. So he's going above and beyond what other
What
developers.
others are doing, right?
Are doing, because we all know at Puoco Beach,
Yeah,
that whole area, and until they can get a community-wide septic system, which I hope is part of the CIP in the
Right.
future.
So
you know,
some of the other homes might even be on old types of cesspools, right? Yeah.
or small individual wastewater, what we call drain fields or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's why we felt that this was, that, in my mind, 3 things are really good. They're moving back, they're
Yeah.
lifting up because
Yeah.
they're in the flood zone, and then they're installing this more high-tech
And when you-
wastewater system.
When you lift it up, and I think Commissioner Fatuzek was mentioning too about the site. How much higher again was it from the previous or from the neighbors? What do you?
Oh,
what
it's,
visually
I
are
didn't
you
measure to
seeing?
the neighbors, but from previous, it's only 4-foot difference, a 4-foot height difference. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the county? No, okay, thank you. So we're gonna hear now from the applicant's presentation. So we have John Pippin and Frank Serling via Zoom. So I'm going to get you to raise your right hand and to swear you in to tell the truth today before the Leeward Planning Commission.
I do.
You do. Okay. And Frank, are you, and you do too. Okay, thank you. Okay, now just again, please speak directly into your mic. All right, and you've received the background recommendation and reports from the planning department.
We have, yes.
And do you agree with the recommendations, including all of the conditions?
Yes, we agree.
And so now please proceed with your presentation.
Aloha kako, John Pippin. I live just outside of Honoka'a here on the Big Island. Thank you all very much for your time and dedication to this process. Thanks Deputy Director Darrow, Planning Department staff for the excellent presentation, the favorable recommendation, the hard work that went into evaluating this request. We think the merits of this request that were outlined just previously by Mr. Roy are significant, and that we are retreating from the shoreline voluntarily. We're starting with an old property. It's been developed for decades, right? So the first home was built late 50s, early 60s. It was added on to in the mid 70s, compliant with all the rules, regulations at that time. All of those rules have changed over the intervening decades. So what we've got now is a legal development that doesn't conform to current rules in terms of its setback from the shoreline primarily, and the compliance with flood zone regulations. So this is what we're starting with. Mr. Serlin, the applicant, has been very proactive, very conservation minded. You know, the idea is to reuse, salvage, recoup many of the building materials from the existing dwelling and incorporate those as he can into the new dwelling. Came from him. You know, I didn't have to push for the enhanced aerobic treatment system that really improves the wastewater effluent from the property. And, you know, in terms of SMA review, we're not tasked to look at the entire community and how it's changing over time. We're tasked with looking at the criteria put forward in SMA, like view impacts, like environmental impacts, public access. And we're ticking all of those boxes here. That said, the question came up for the seawall and the pool. There are no plans to do any changes at all to the seawall. That was recently repaired and is in good condition. It was recently resurveyed by West Thomas Associates to confirm its condition since it was repaired under permit. The swimming pool that's proposed will have to be engineered to comply with all building regulations, all flood zone regulations. And likewise, the access to the property will have to be approved by DPW. So this isn't a building permit that we're submitting to you, right? It has to go through additional clearances, but we're here to evaluate those SMA criteria. And I think we're really going to the max, what we can do to retreat from the shoreline, to come into compliance with all the current rules and regulations. With that, I'll be happy to field any questions you may have. We just really respectfully request your favorable consideration on this one.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? For the applicant? Or-
I have a question
Oh,
for
yes.
the applicant,
Commissioner
please.
Pashandor.
Good morning. My name is Mahina Paishandur, and I had a question for the applicant. Wanted to confirm that the use of the new house or the new development is primarily for residential purposes, living purposes. And just wanted to clarify again whether there is a proposal to rent out the property for short-term vacation uses.
I can help with that, and Mr. Serlin can chime in. But my understanding is Mr. Serlin intends for this to be his primary residence eventually. It may take a number of years to build it within the time frame allowed by the SMA permit, of course. The existing non-conforming use of the STVR, he would like to retain if possible, but it's not a deal breaker. You know, he'd like to have that option for financial reasons to be able to let it out short term. And this kind of rolls into a discussion that's bubbling up now with the proposed regulations or changes in regulations to transient accommodation rules. So we're seeing potentially that areas like this that do have a pretty high density of existing non-conforming short-term vacation rentals may be permitted through this new process of vacation nodes, through this new TAR regulation that's being proposed or soon to be proposed, that may just justify that kind of use in this area is suitable. So, you know, this is hypotheticals and it's not a make or break, but this is intended as Mr. Serlin's primary residence.
Thank you.
I just had a follow-up
Yes.
for the county on that.
Commissioner Mills.
Jeff, Could you help clarify what, if any, sort of control this commission has regarding the non-conforming short-term vacation rental use that he may or may not have for the property?
Confirm whether or not he does have one?
You're saying he does have it.
Yeah, and I believe that the applicant's representative can confirm that.
Yes, there is a NUC for SCVR use. If it's possible, he'd like to retain it. And our discussions with the planning department indicated that would be likely possible. But again, it's not a make or break.
I guess I'm just not clear on what our power is with respect to that
I can speak to that.
portion.
I think Mr. Darrow's.
We had a similar situation. In fact, this may have been one of Mr. Pippin's applications. This was a rezoning that was before the county council. And there was concern that the development may turn into short-term vacation rentals. And ultimately, the advice or opinion given to them was, if it's something that's allowed, they shouldn't not allow it. They shouldn't restrict it if it's something that is permitted. And so they ended up not putting that condition in.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual development itself, whether or not that was a different matter, but overall, it seemed like if there is uses permitted in a particular zoning district, that through a rezoning or through a permit process, we shouldn't be restricting those uses.
Right. Thank you.
And again, this is unique in the sense that this wasn't, to get one of these non-conforming use certificates, you had to have been operating as a short-term vacation rental for a period of time in a particular location to receive one. And this applicant, I'm not sure if he was the owner at the time or not, but this property does have a non-conforming use certificate.
And that use certificate travels with the parcel, not with transfer of ownership.
Correct. It can change ownership.
Thank you.
If I may,
Please.
Mr. Pippin also touched upon the new proposed bill that's going to be coming forward shortly. And the main purpose of that bill is to look at regulating hosted rentals, where somebody lives in the residence and rents out a portion of their dwelling. They live on site. There's also discussion of creating what are called vacation nodes in areas that he had mentioned where there's a high number of short-term vacation rentals, whether hosted or unhosted. Unfortunately, at this time, we know how many unhosted we have. We're not sure how many hosted we have in particular areas. So that matter may or may not be part of the proposed bill going forward. It may come back at another time. So just to be aware of that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant or for Mr. Pippin? No? Yes, excuse me.
So I
Commissioner
applaud the applicant in developing the new residential site in a manner that is compliant with the SMA rules, and also, upgrading to new and improved septic systems. That's wonderful. It's going to be very helpful and beneficial to the environment, of course. However, if I am hearing from you as the applicant that it's not a make or break deal, if not the application, or I'm sorry, I don't have the exact technical terms, the ability to rent out a short-term vacation rental, to have the ability for that use is not a make or break, I would encourage the applicant to come back for that particular use at, when the rules change.
And again, applaud you for taking, the extra steps to make sure that you are conforming to the new SMA rules. Mahalo.
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Rippon.
I think I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Paishan Dwar. And I do think it comes back to what we're here to evaluate in the form of the SMA use permit. So if we're talking about short-term rental use, which is not all that unlike residential use in terms of impact to the SMA, I think it's maybe a little borderline to restrict that use that would be otherwise appropriate for this property without having firm grounds within those SMA criteria to restrict that use on this property. So, we can put this question to Mr. Serlin to just see what his feelings are on the short-term vacation rental use. Frank, if you could, you're muted. Thanks.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm apologize for being late to this meeting, but anyway, I'm here and I've been listening for the last while. So I can speak to that, to the short-term vacation rental aspect too. When I started looking at Puako and had these criteria of, standalone, real Hawaiian neighborhood and not a gated community and all that stuff, my intent was and still is to build our family home and to live there and not to have it rented out to anybody. And that is the intent now and still is. And when I bought that place and was looking at places in Puako, I never even inquired as to whether they had a short-term vacation rental license or not, because it never was or is part of the long-term plan. But after acquiring the property and with the long to get permits, the shoreline permit and a building permit, and before that to work with an architect and my own plans and what to build for the family. It's been a long process and expensive one because with a mortgage on the property and so forth. It's been very helpful to have the money coming in from some short-term vacation rentals. And as John said, whether it's people renting on short-term or people living there full-time, it doesn't really change how the impact to the neighborhood. But to answer the question of going forward, if we are allowed to build this to improve the property now, I would like to have the option of being able to do a short-term vacation rental should I need it financially in the short term. In the long term, I don't want to rent it out. I want to live there. So the answer is I would like to keep that option available, but that's not the intent going forward.
Thank you. Does that answer the question? Yeah. And I just wanted to speak to it. It sounds like you're going to repurpose some of the wood and things, the cedar, or can you speak to that a little bit of what you're repurposing? And
Sure. Well, there's two buildings on the site right now. One, it was called when we bought it, they called it the main house, and then there's the cottage. So the main house is the one that was built in the late 50s, early 60s, and it's a panaboat house. And if you're familiar with panaboat houses, they're kind of like if you remember when you were a kid playing with Lincoln logs, so it's like a giant Lincoln log home. So it's prefabbed on the mainland, shipped over on trucks, I guess back then, and put together like a log home. And so what I want to do is to not demolish that home, but remove it and either sell it or pay somebody to take it away and repurpose it somewhere else on the island. And I think for a number of reasons I want to do that. Not only financially, because to demolish it and pay to have it removed would cost money, but more importantly, I don't want to fill up the landfill with this material, and it's still a pretty fine building that could be re-erected somewhere else very easily. So it can be dismantled. Each one of the Lincoln logs would have a number on it and then reassembled somewhere else. So the main house would be moved. The cottage, which is a small like studio elevated one, so like a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen all in one small room, that is got a lot of koa wood, and it's I want to reuse that koa wood in the new building. So most of the cottage would be reused, and all of the main house would be reused if my plan goes through as I plan.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No.
There's, yeah,
Yes.
if I could just add a little bit more.
Okay.
We've been requested by the planning department to really address the shoreline impacts, and we've agreed to not have any staging of materials, obviously, for the construction or demolition. No heavy equipment would be allowed in the shoreline setbacks. So those, all of that deconstruction moving would have to occur without impacts to the 40-foot shoreline setback area. We're totally on board with that.
Thank you.
Last
Yes.
question. And this
Commissioner
might be more
Tucci.
for county, but is Puaco Beach Road a county road or a state road?
It's county.
County.
It's a county road.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pippin. And thank you, Mr. Silva. Excuse me, Mr. Sterling.
Thank you.
Yes, and since there's no public testimony either on Zoom or here, is that right? Yes, okay. So we're going to need a motion for action then. Yeah, well, I mean, the motion for discussion, we have to put a motion on the table so that we can discuss it now, all this
I
information.
move that we
discussed. So
take this matter to discussion.
you have to vote you have to state it as that you're going to approve it, and then it goes into discussion.
Okay.
So you make a motion to approve or not?
I move that we approve the permit as presented by the applicant.
Okay, and do you want to just state the,
I just don't see my script,
Okay.
but I can put the number on. I move that we,
she's going to get it here.
I move that the application for special management area use permit docket number 2022-00024 be approved based on the deputy planning director's recommendation, which shall be adopted.
Thank you. So we need a motion, a second for this.
Second.
Okay, and seconded. Okay, so now we're open to discuss it. So Commissioner Pashandor.
Thank you. I have a question for Deputy Director Darrell. Are we allowed to place a condition on this application
to make sure that I'm clearly hearing the reasons for wanting to have the option for short-term vacation rental. Are we allowed to place a condition to ensure that that comes into compliance, like to make sure that the applicant applies for that use moving forward? As
Applies.
a part of this, to place a condition on, as part of this application. And then I'm not fully aware of all of the requirements and the steps for someone to apply to run a short-term vacation rental.
He already has one.
Yeah, if I could, and I briefly touched upon it earlier. There was only a very short window for somebody during the first round of rule changes for unhosted short-term vacation rentals for somebody that was not located in a permitted zoning to be able to get what was called a non-conforming use certificate, a NUC. Once somebody received that, then they have to renew every year. And if the ownership changes, the permit or the certificate can be transferred. So this particular applicant had purchased the property with the certificate. So there's nothing more that he needs to apply for or anything.
Thank you.
I could mention this, that moving forward, if the new rules are adopted that identify hosted rentals, then, and the applicant lives there, then they may have the same opportunity to apply for their primary residence and being able to host a room or two. And again, those are things yet unseen that we're working through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You gonna, any other questions or discussion, please? Commissioner Fatuzek?
Thank you. I think this is a really interesting case in that this has been the standard practice in Puuko for the last 20 plus years, where historic homes are being demolished and, for lack of a better word, mansions are being put in. And there has been no SMA review of that. And in essence, it's led to dismantling of a historic district. And this is the first time that I'm aware of that application for an SMA has come in for Puuko. Is that the case for one of these lots?
In this particular rule change, yes, there has been some a little bit more north that were coming in that triggered when they built the second dwelling.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you remember we had the current rule required if they built that second dwelling, they'd have to come in.
Yeah.
But this is the first one coming in Puuko that the first dwelling has to come in.
And my understanding of the SMA guidelines is that cumulative impacts are one of the major components for review. I believe that's 205A-26 2A. And I think that if this rule had been in place back before, it would be a much different Puuko today. So here we are, where the majority of lots in Puuko have already been affected by this change. I'm not sure how at this point we can mitigate any of that. I mean, looking at it individually, I would love to see more view planes from the road, even though, it's not a state highway. I think walling off the entire lot with a 6-foot wall and 6-foot gates is really closing off views of the shoreline and closing off the community. Whereas it may not be the whole community may not be a gated community, but the construction of these walls and gates and giant houses that block everything off, create a corridor where only the individual people who own these oceanfront properties are able to enjoy the ocean and the view of the ocean. I think it has a pretty significant change on the community. I don't know how to address that with one application.
I concur, Chair Vatusek, and that is the struggle that I am also having, because I think that this idea of cumulative environmental impact as set forth in the statute has been narrowly construed, quite frankly, to be considering sort of like the impact on the water, or as opposed to the impact on the entire environment of the community. And it was very interesting to me that the applicant noted his desire to live in a Hawaiian neighborhood, when in my experience, Pu'ako, it doesn't look like that anymore. And that these mansions do begin to change the environmental character of the community. And I guess my question for you, Mr. Darrow, is just this idea of, you spoke to it, but at what point, I can't locate the tipping point for when the character of a community changes so much that it is now in effect a gated community, and what our power is as a commission to really consider that as we review these SMA permits that are really looking at the entire ocean and front environment.
Thank you. It's not an easy question to answer. And in this particular case, I think we're looking at probably the most, I don't want to belittle this. This is one single family dwelling.
Yeah.
What we normally look at for cumulative effects is like a resort complex that comes in, like Waikoloa or Manalani or Kukio, Kaupalehu, and they come in for one SMA permit because they have reached to a cumulative impact. We're looking at an entire development, and it's approved through one SMA permit. What's happened now is the law has changed to say, we feel that there should be review of each dwelling that comes in to want to build on the coastline, so that we can address the issues that are occurring on the shoreline. There also is in that same law that says, if you build a dwelling that's over 7,500 square feet, you have to come in for an SMA permit. So right now, the standard is 7,500 square feet. There was an attempt in this legislature to bring it down to 5,000, but that didn't go forward. Again, cumulative impact is when we have, let's say we had this project was coming in now, Pu'ako, and we were able to look at that and say, this is a large project. It's going to have cumulative impacts. How are we going to address these cumulative impacts for this project? We could say, hold back the whole development 100 feet. Or we could say, whatever we want to. At that point, we look at it as a development with cumulative impacts. This particular one, it's hard to be able to place the burden of this on one person, on one applicant that's coming in and in our opinion, doing the right thing. He's actually moving his development back out of the shoreline setback area. He's addressing wastewater issues. Again, we may not agree with everything he does. We feel like, well, this particular dwelling may be too big, or it may block a view or something, but it's this dwelling. It's not the entire Pu'ako that we're looking at right now. We're looking at the impacts of this dwelling.
Thank
So
you. And
if I might,
yes, Commissioner Vatusek.
I disagree a little bit in that when you're assessing the overall impacts of a development, those are the impacts of that development. If it's a bigger development, those impacts are greater. I believe the purpose of cumulative impacts is the accumulation of multiple smaller developments whose impacts as a whole then reach the level of a larger development. Now, this particular case, this particular applicant, I don't have an answer in any way. I don't think that they are individually responsible for the cumulative impacts of the culture of replacing historic beach homes, 1950s beach homes with modern mansions. This is one example of hundreds that have taken place in Puaco. And so I agree, we can't hold this individual applicant responsible for all of the cumulative impacts that have happened. But now that this rule is in place where SMA permits for individual homes within Puaco are going to be reviewed by the commission, I think that's the role of the planning department to have a plan on how those cumulative impacts will be addressed. And from my perspective, that is maintaining the feel of the community through home design, through allowing view planes and maintaining that feel of a 1950s Hawaiian beach community that is so appealing to people coming in from other places.
If I may respond, Chair? Or did you
Yes,
have a
please.
comment?
No, go ahead. Thank
So in terms of cumulative impact, I hear what you're saying. There is this memory of what Puaco was, and it's changed from that, and it continues to change from that. How can we quantify that in terms of a cumulative impact or the contribution of a single home to this impact? What we're talking about here in terms of the SMA is replacing an already permitted home that was developed decades ago with a new home with arguably less impacts based on its retreat from the shoreline, its improvement in the wastewater handling, right? Its maintenance of that permitted shoreline access, not blocking that. So I think in terms of cumulative impact, this is actually benefiting the SMA. It's improving on the current state. The home as it is currently blocks views to the shoreline across the property. So it's not like that's changing appreciably.
Thank you. I want to make a comment too, because, I don't see Puaco as a gated community. There's public beach access roads that are open for everybody to go to the beach. It is sad that a lot of things have changed in our time here of viewing things, but they have changed. And now we're not here to really, we can't single out this one as the one that is the tipping point. I think the tipping point already happened. I think if you look at those overheads that we were provided with, the homes around him are, substantial homes with no setback because they didn't have to comply. So now what we're being asked to do is to look at the compliance of the SMA that they have put forward. There's many parts to this discussion, and many of us, have different feelings and connections with these communities and surfing there and diving there and friends there and barbecuing there. But when I see this application, I see someone who, wants to be in Hawaii. Maybe everybody has a different idea of what it means to live Hawaii or to live in a Hawaiian home or community or anything like that. But he is coming in with the respect for Hawaii in purchasing something that he feels that by complying with the rules, the SMA rules of doing the setback, of stepping up to the sewage system that he's willing to put in, that this applicant is following the guidelines. So, I mean, even though we may feel like the cumulative events that happen in Hawaii in general, it's difficult. It's difficult to the position that we're all in to look at it and to say, how we can't go backwards. So here we are. And if you look at that overhead and you see what his neighbors look like, they're already all built out and they're only 20 feet away from the ocean. And you have someone who's coming in and repurposing, coming in more of the right way of looking at it. And it didn't feel like to me that a 5-bedroom home I don't see it as a McMansion. I see a McMansion as a 10-bedroom home with 10 bathrooms. We all have a different idea of what that means. But I see an applicant who is conforming to the regulations. But I also sympathize with all of us being in this position of being raised here or being part of Hawaii and seeing it disappear. The historic aspects of it being gone, those feelings being gone.
I don't disagree, Madam Chairwoman. I think that the question in my mind is how do we elevate the discussion around what an SMA use permit, what the phrase cumulative environmental impact in the context of an SMA use permit actually means, given the changing landscape. So it isn't that I'm singling out Mr. Serlin as the problem. What I'm singling out as the problem is this mind frame of looking at
Right.
it only matters if it's a large scale development as opposed to what
Right, but see,
Mike has also.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that this is the discussion here.
Well, it
to
may not be, but
find your
I'm trying
answer.
to put it on the record
Okay.
so that when this conversation goes
Okay.
to the county council,
Yes.
or our recommendation or,
In this case, we're the deciding body since it's an SMA.
oh,
So
that's
we're
right.
we issue
It's on
the
us.
approval.
Well, I am then
but-
just trying to put it on the record because I think it is an
think
important
it's on the
consideration for the planning department to take up as we're looking at these permits going forward. And I think at some point, someone's going to have to say no.
And I just would agree to that, I can support this application in its current form. I would rather see it designed a little more community friendly to allow better views, but it's his design, it's their home, I'm not going to get in the way of it. What I would like to see in the future from the planning department is that analysis of Puako specifically. And how this type of development changes the character of the community, which I think is an SMA criteria. So for me, again, this isn't what this particular
Right.
application, but I do think it needs to be noted and hopefully future applications will receive,
So I think this is being noted.
Yeah.
I think and the other thing to also for all of us to note is there isn't any neighborhood people objecting to this. There's nobody here. We didn't get any letters objecting to this. And there's nobody here objecting to it. So I think that it is duly noted that we, want going forward, what a cumulative impact what that means and how to look at that. So.
the saying is death from 1,000 tiny cuts, right? You could do one quick
Yeah.
chop and the head's off and you're dead. Otherwise, 1,000 tiny cuts does
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's just that level of analysis with these applications, I think is very important moving forward.
Thank you.
If I could respond,
Yes.
I really appreciate the discussion. When the planning department reviews SMA permits, we have standards and criteria we have to review. And we really try to go into detail in our recommendation regarding those reviews. In our Planning Commission Rules, Rule 9, it goes into great detail on what the criteria of a substantial adverse effect is. And in speaking to that, it says, in considering the significance of potential environmental effects, the director shall consider the sum of those effects that adversely affect the quality of the environment and shall evaluate the overall cumulative effects of that action. And so there is a list of criteria. It's on 10 criteria that determine when a project reaches substantial adverse effect. And so when we go through an SMA permit, we go into detail looking at these criteria, whether or not this particular application has reached to a substantial adverse effect. We did do that in this recommendation, and it did not reach to that level. Beyond that, there's this discussion of we should really look at Puaco from a holistic approach, right? And again, we can go back. What some communities have done is they've created a design review. They've created a plan for that particular area. And that's something that can most definitely be done. And that will bring further specific guidance to the department when looking at these types of permits. It's just very difficult in this particular circumstance, as mentioned, to be able to come to that evaluation, with the limited scope we're looking at of the action. But thank you very much for the discussion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Um,
Commissioner
I would
Parshand.
like to request of you to agendize a presentation from the planning department on the next steps that will be taken on per Commissioner Batusic's recommendation to have ideas, strategies, a plan moving forward to evaluate Puaco as a whole community.
Okay, I think that would be a good agenda item. Thank you. Mahalo. Mahalo for the discussion. So we do have a motion on the table to approve this as special SMA. I don't think I have the. You want to read your motion again, and then we have to vote on it, and it's a roll call vote, is that right? Okay.
Move that the application for special management area use permit docket number 2022-00024 be approved based on the deputy planning director's recommendation, which shall be adopted.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Now we have a vote, please, roll call.
Commissioner Knowles,
Aye.
Commissioner Dela Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Paishan Duarte,
I with reservation.
Commissioner Vatusic,
Aye.
and Chair DeFranco.
Aye.
The motion carries 5 with 1 excused.
And the applicant will be notified in writing of the.
Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Mahalo.
Yeah, I am. So I'm going to be recusing myself for agenda items 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to take a short recess. Thank you. I like that tiny cut. I know it is.
Juicy.
Wish you could really leave us, Mike. Do you need us to write letters? Do you need letters?
Give it rules out, given that it's something. Sorry, I was like.
There's so many things. Well, we do say no. And we do put reservations. That's true. We do that. We are trying to do that. I know. This is, you know. And that's the point where we finally get the motion on the table that we can actually talk about. So that's important. That was put it on record.
We always considered it as transmitted to them. But that's interesting.
And then it's sneak out of here. Okay.
Yes. Let's do that. Me too. That's basically what we're working on.
No, it definitely doesn't. If you get 5 people on the. Instead of one, all at once.
Well, let us know. Choose go. Likely. You can sit there. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, are we ready to come back to order? Is everybody here? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. The Leeward Planning Commission is back to order. I'd like to introduce the next agenda item number 2. Applicant is the planning director. It's a planning director initiated PL-PDI 2022 -0000004. 5 zeros and a 4. The planning director has initiated the repeal of change of zone ordinance number 9570 and number 9863 and amending section 25-8-2 North and South Kona districts zone map, chapter 25, article 8 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2016 edition as amended by reverting the current zoning of the subject properties from agricultural 1 acre A-1A, agricultural 3 acres A-3A, agricultural 200 acres A-200A, agricultural 255 acres A-255A, and agricultural 8,000 acres A-8,000A to their original agricultural 20 acres A-20A zoning district for 11,185.708 acres of land. The rezone area consisting of 6 parcels begins approximately 1.2 miles east Mauka of Hawaii Belt Road in the vicinity of Greenwell Mountain Road and extends approximately 8.6 further east Mauka at Kealakekua, Kiloa, Waipunalulu, Kalama, Kumu, and Kalama Kawali, South Kona, Hawaii, TMKs 38-2-012, 001, 012, 013, 014 portion, 015 and 38-2-001, 101. Commissioner Vatusik, before we get started, we'll make a statement regarding his recusal from this item.
Aloha, I'm just going to be recused from this one.
Okay, do we have a staff presentation? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and defer on this item because we don't have a quorum of commissioners to take up any decisions or discussion around this item. But it does seem we have landowners present or just public testimony.
They signed up to testify.
Okay. We have 2 people signed up to offer public testimony on this matter. So I will call the first person on the list, Tom Pace, to the table here. Please raise your right hand, Mr. Pace. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on this matter now before the Leeward Planning Commission? Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Oh, turn on your microphone, please, and speak clearly into the mic. Thanks.
Okay. Just a brief history. This property was sold by the Greenwell family to a Japanese family who the patriarch passed. It was turned into going to be a golf course of 500 units and an Arnold Palmer designed golf course. Since the patriarch passed, it was sold to 3 major developers who were going to develop the property. We're the adjoining ranch holder, and we paid another 50% more to acquire the property to prevent it from being developed. We put 9,000 acres of it, the first in the state to do the Forest Legacy program. or their conservation easement. And we've been 17 years with this application to revert the zoning back to 20 acres. So we would greatly appreciate your consideration of that.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. No questions, right? Okay, next I'd like to call up Gregory Hendrickson. Please turn on the microphone. Thank you. And please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter now before the Leeward Planning Commission?
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
do.
You may proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, commissioners, and aloha. We appreciate the scheduling of this particular item, which is functionally a substantial downzoning of the property. As Tom had mentioned, there's a significant conservation easement, actually 2 on the property, that cover all of the larger zoned elements, in addition to quite a bit of the 1 and 5 acre elements. But most of the 1 and 5 acre elements of the zoning remain in place. And it's really those aspects that this director initiated change impact, and it reverts it back to what is the zoning of adjacent lands and its original character as an agricultural property. And we have great respect for this commission, but recognize that because of the recusals of 3 of the commissioners on this item, the likelihood of it having its opportunity to be heard by this commission is remote in the near future, for sure. And so we do support, if it is not able to be held in a hearing to be held with an appropriate vote in the allocated 60 days, that it be moved by the director to the county council directly to be heard. Like Tom has mentioned, the planning director found that this ordinance was, the terms of the ordinance was time barred 17 years ago, and that the terms of the ordinance was reversion. And so we've been waiting for that to happen. It's created a lot of confusion between those who are working with the property agriculturally at this point and the planning department as to exactly how this functions with what was an intensive zoning construct and landowners who are pursuing agricultural endeavors on the land. So we're hoping to get that cleaned up sooner rather than later, and do appreciate any review that this commission has, but we would support that being moved directly to the county council if the time lapses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Director Kern, did you have anything you wanted to say before we move on to the next agenda item?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we are basically under a statute requirement to hold it for the 60 days. If quorum cannot be reached within that time, then the application will move forward to the county council with a de facto negative recommendation. And then we'll take it up at the county council or planning committee at that time and get into the discussion there. So we'll keep you folks posted, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Okay. Moving on. We're going to pick up some unfinished business, picking up agenda items 3 and 4 for the project by Ahu Pohaku Ho'omaluhia LLC, formerly Robert Watkins and Jean Sunderland. I'm going to introduce both of these items together. Item number 3, applicant Ahu Pohaku Ho'omaluhia LLC, formerly Robert Watkins and Jean Sunderland, PL-SMA-2022-0000018. Application for an amendment to special management area SMA use permit number 417 to increase the number of guest rooms from 16 to 36 by constructing 20 additional guest rooms at Hawaii Island Retreat on an approximately 5-acre portion of a 14.5 acre parcel of land situated in the special management area. The subject property is located at 54-250 Lokahi Road, approximately 1.2 miles northeast Makai of Oconee Highway, Hanaula and Honopueo, North Kohala, Hawaii, TMK 35-4-009-014 portion. I will also read applicant item number 4, Ahu Pohaku Ho'omaluhia LLC, formerly Robert Watkins and Jean Sunderland, PL-SPP-2022-0000018, application for an amendment to special permit number 1117 to increase the number of guest rooms from 16 to 36 by constructing 20 additional guest rooms at Hawaii Island Retreat on an approximately 5-acre portion of a 14.5 acre parcel of land situated in the State Land Use Agricultural District. The subject property is located at 54-250 Lokahi Road, approximately 1.2 miles northeast Makai of Oconee Highway, Hanaula, excuse me, and Honopueo, North Kohala, Hawaii, TMK 35-4-009-014 portion. Commissioner Kanuha is not here, so he will not make a statement. At the previous, do I need to read this point? Okay. At the previous hearing on January 19th, 2023, the commission voted to grant 3 petitioners standing in a contested case hearing. Pursuant to Planning Commission Rule 4-6I, the parties were directed to participate in a mediation conference before the contested case hearing could commence. The commission has received a copy of email communication among the parties where they agreed to defer mediation as they were working on trying to reach an agreement by themselves. I don't see that we have any public testimony on this item. Okay.
We have one testifier on Zoom.
Okay, excellent. I will first open the floor to public testimony. Can you let us know who that is testifying, and I'll swear them in?
Yes, Mark Castang.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Castang is the last name?
yes, Mark Castaigne.
Please raise your right hand, Mr. Castang. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter currently before the Leeward Planning Commission?
I do.
Thank you so much. You may proceed. You have 3 minutes.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm speaking for myself. If I have enough time, I would read a letter from 6 of our neighbors. We were part of a community association established 20 years ago, which is now dissolved. We have been neighbors of Hawaii Island Retreat. We've had huge issues with them from the start. Many of them never resolved. One of the biggest is Maluhia Road, which accesses this. The community association as a whole was left with the responsibility to pave this road. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to go out there, It has a very steep grade, over 10%, blind curves. And we had to live with this because the county did not make them.
It looks like we've lost Mr. Castang. If we can get him back, do you want to preserve his time? How does that work? Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed, and if we get him back on the line, we may take a brief recess from the applicant's presentation to let him finish his testimony. I'd like to call the applicants to the table, please. I guess all parties. My apologies. Mr. Fouquet is online.
Good morning, Michael
I'd like to ask you all to raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth on the matter currently before the Leeward Planning Commission?
I do.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Michael Matsukawa. I'm an attorney representing the applicant, and the applicant's representative, Jean Sunderland, is also here, seated to my right.
Thank you. Go
Good
ahead.
morning. My name is Edmund Haitsuka. I represent the petitioners. Mr. Charles Anderson, one of the petitioners, and representatives of the other petitioners is here with me this morning.
Okay. Would you like to provide the commission with an update on where things currently stand?
Mr. Fuki is also
Yes, I see him there.
online. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, good morning and aloha, Madam Chair, members of this commission. Again, my name is Sidney Fouquet. I was here to assist the applicant in the processing of this application. Appreciate the commission's indulgence in, giving us an opportunity to see whether we could kind of reach an informal settlement with the petitioner. And, over the last couple months, we did work rather aggressively in trying to address the concerns, but, regrettably and sadly, nothing, although we did make quite a bit of progress, there was no consensus on all of the items. So while we appreciate the commission's giving us an opportunity, I think regrettably right now we'll have to take it to the next step, which is the mediation and I guess eventually the contested case process. Again, I express my commission's my appreciation to the commission for these opportunity to have this informal settlement opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any?
Yes,
Any
this
addition
is to
that?
confirm that we have attempted to reach an informal agreement, the applicant and the petitioners, and that we are unable to reach an agreement at this time.
Okay, could you clarify for the commission, please? I was under the impression after our last Leeward Planning Commission meeting that we referred you all to a formal mediation process, but pursuant to Rule 4.6I, did that not occur?
That is correct. We had requested that the mediation be deferred while the parties attempt to reach an agreement.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Anything for the Planning Commission to add? I mean, sorry, the Planning Department. We are the Planning Commission.
No, Chair Knowles, the only thing I would add is that now I will reach out to the parties again and we will schedule that formal mediation.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to note that we had asked you to conduct a formal mediation process between our previous meeting and this meeting. So just to flag that as a point of order with respect to the rules. If there's nothing else. Okay. So Maya, you'll go ahead and work with the parties to
Yes.
establish a formal mediation
Yes.
schedule?
I will
Great.
reach out to them by email.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Mom.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I have to make a motion. I'd like to ask for a motion to defer for a future hearing upon successful completion of mediation or conclusion of the contested case hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Do we do a roll call? Any discussion?
No.
Okay, is this a roll call vote?
Commissioner Vitusick,
Aye.
Commissioner Paishan Duart,
Aye.
Commissioner Dela Cruz,
Aye.
and Chair Knowles.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the report on special management area determinations and minor permits issued by the planning director for the months of January and February 2023. Those were distributed on 3/2. Any questions for the staff on the SMA report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Agenda items for the next meeting. Are there any matters that they'd like to have agendized? Any commissioner, sorry, let me rephrase that. Would the commissioners like to have any items agendized for our future meeting?
I think just to reiterate the motion made earlier by Commissioner Paishan Duart about looking at cumulative impacts of pool co-development.
Excellent. And is that something that we could schedule for after our next monthly meeting? Or do you need longer?
That's something
prepare?
that the department would request at least 2 months to prepare.
Excellent. So let's plan that for 2 months from now.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The Leeward Planning Commission's next monthly meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 20th, 2023 at the County Council Chambers in Kona, and the public can also testify via Zoom. The date and venue of the meeting are subject to change. Does the staff have any announcements?
Chair Knowles, I have an announcement. So our next meeting is going to also have a joint hearing on the same day of the Leeward Commission meeting. So we're going to hold the joint meeting in the morning, and that will be a joint meeting of the Leeward and the Windward Planning Commission in order to do rule amendments to your Planning Commission Rule 8 and Planning Commission Rule 9. Those are related to shoreline setbacks and the special management area. And the rules are essentially to adopt recent changes that were made in state law so that your rules will conform with state law. So we have tentatively scheduled that for 9 a.m. on the, let's see here, what was it?
20th.
The 20th. And then we're looking at having the Leeward meeting start in the afternoon after lunch.
Okay, so that'll be a full day.
It'll be a full
Commissioners?
day because we tentatively have 4 items on the Leeward agenda.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Okay, if there's no further business, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Aye. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned at 11:29 a.m. Thank you so much.